Talking poultry. Now, there are a number of issues that have come through the market in the last a few days and months. Let's run through the main problems. Let's begin with the problem of returns. The allegation, if I may start off with that, slightly negative, but let's begin off with that, is that the industry is reworking, if you like, to use industry speak, the chickens that return after not being sold and resending this back into the markets. How true is that, and how prevalent is the practice, if it's there?
Good afternoon, Godfrey. Yes, it is a very important question, and I think you hit the nail right on the head by talking about the media linger currently of rework. But I think it starts all with returns. And I think every industry, doesn't matter if it's in the car industry, shoe, whatever, especially food, that do supply the consumer with product via the retail and wholesale sector, do have to administer returns. Now, returns is a global phenomenon. It is how you deal with it. And I think what came to light during December is that there was some speculation and then later on a bit of fact, but then also a lot of hype and misperception and conception about the returns. Now, the return is, there's good returns and bad returns. If you, for instance, drive with a truck and you deliver to 5 retail stores on a day and you get to the last one and you're just outside the delivery date, that product has not changed ownership and it was perfectly handled in a cold chain environment. Could go back into your stock, no problem, and deliver it the next day. There are also the fact of bad returns, and that would be a product that would have reached a frozen product, its expiry date, and I think that is where the whole media hype came from. And of course, there's a lot of evidence that this does happen in the industry, and I don't think there were denial from the company that were involved.
Yeah. Is there a problem there?
Well, it depends from what angle you see it. Now, first, again, what they stated is that it was not against the law and it was fit for human consumption. So they did do some tests on the product and they have been cleared by the Department of Agriculture on the Free State. So it did indicate that the product was not substandard or inferior. However, Astral and all our brands do not rework chicken. Now, the key word here is rework. I think the context or the definition on rework chickens that came to the surface is where a frozen product in a store would reach its expiry date. That would then take back to its origin, the supplier, defrosted, and then washed in a chlorine bath solution with water to disinfect or clean it or kill all bacteria, which is around the globe a practice that are accepted. Not that everybody in South Africa do it, but in this instance there was no denial that it was done. Yep. The product was then repacked under a date that went into the market. Now, if that is the term for rework, I don't believe it is industry-wide. It is maybe the practice on the back of returns by 1 or 2 producers. Yeah. But yet, not against the law, yeah, but maybe in our terms, it's something we would definitely not participate in.
Yeah, just in terms of returns themselves, in the South African market, just how far off the mark are we of the global standard, if there is indeed such a standard?
I think if you look at the sophisticated infrastructures in both North America and Europe, maybe we're lagging a bit. But if you look at the infrastructure in South Africa, very good structures around the big metropolitan areas. But then to deliver to the Northern Cape, those kind of areas, it is more suitable to take frozen product there purely because of the inbound logistics and then of course the consumer, the store must keep it and the consumer must take it home, maybe into a rural area. So our outlying areas are not up to scratch with the rest of the world, but metropolises, maybe the world can learn from our retailers in South Africa.
Yeah. Now, part of the reason why we're having a problem now with the problem for reworkings and returns and those kind of things is because competition is fierce in the
Yes.
market. And it's partly fierce because of the strong rand. The strong rand, of course, enabling your producers, not your producers, but your importers to import at a cheaper price versus what you guys are able to produce here in South Africa. How big a problem is it that with the strong rand, and how big an issue is it causing with producers like yourselves?
Yeah. Godfrey, there's two things behind the imports. Imports has always played a factor in South Africa. It's gone up to 20% of local consumption, down to 10%. Lately, over the past 6 to 8 months, imports have been boosted by the strength of the rand, especially from countries in Southern America, Brazil, Argentina, and for over the festive period, if we take that period October to the end of January, imports into this country has increased by 33% towards the comparative period in the previous year. Just December alone, imports up 42% compared to the previous December. Now that is partly backed by the strong rand, but also by, we believe, a bit of dumping, typical dumping from those countries who can't, because we can see the price comparison of the product reaching our shores here versus the local price in Brazil. There's definitely some signs of dumping.
Are you under threat?
We are under threat.
How big a threat?
Yeah, currently imports approximately over a year about 15% of local consumption. But if you do the comparison in the other way, in December, 21 bird carcasses equivalent to the mass arrived on the shores. We produce locally 18.5 million birds a week. In week terms, we imported 5 million carcasses. So currently, it is a big threat to us. However, on the other side is the infrastructure in South Africa is also of that nature that these imports can't run away or go up by another 50 or 100%. So it is a threat. It's mostly back on a bit of dumping and the strength of the rand, of course.
Yeah, let's round up this with a look at the demand for chickens going forward. Are South Africans eating more chicken than beef because of the recession?
Yeah, I don't think it's because of the recession. Poultry is a very good protein source and a very good value proposition.
Less expensive than beef?
Less expensive than beef, and it's also more available, and it can be distributed in a frozen tariff. So it is the choice, and at this point in time, by far the best value proposition to the average consumer in South Africa.